so I'm not sure.
Sorry about that. Thank you. We wanted to go ahead and at least record this component
Okay, yeah,
of Sarah's
that's fine.
guidance and advice on QuickBooks because there were a few folks that couldn't join today, so apologies.
Okay. Well, I apologize if you can't see me. I'm not sure why, but unless my little screen, can you see? Oh, there I am.
I say, and you're showing us Blair Gordon.
That's because I sent her my link to log in with. I'm sorry. That's why
okay.
you're showing as me.
Well, I'm not Blair, so.
I gotcha. I gotcha.
Okay, just I know a lot of you have been concerned about the fact that QuickBooks Intuit has sent out some information that they're going to quit selling QuickBooks starting July 31st in the United States. And that is concerning to me as well. But right now, they're continuing to plan to support all existing users, and they are continuing to sell QuickBooks Enterprise. And we talked a little bit at Graves Mountain about the fact that if you have so many employees, it makes sense to be on QuickBooks Enterprise anyway. But let me pull up my document here and just go through a couple of things so that you won't be too awfully concerned later. The pricing has changed. This was started in December 1st for some, although they're kind of phasing it in. So you may or may not have seen some of the pricing. But after May 31st, if you're on QuickBooks, a lot of you are probably still on QuickBooks 2021. As I am, I'm still working in 2021 myself, but they're going to force you to update March 31st. March 31st, because they're going to sunset that version. So after that, you do have to purchase Pro Plus, which is $649 a user. And then you have to have payroll if you're processing your own payroll, which is going to be $550 per year, which you've been paying for annual subscription for payroll for a long time. But it's gone up to $550 a year plus $6 per month per employee. That $6 per month per employee can add up pretty quickly if you've got 8 to 10 to 12 employees. So that's when it starts making sense to look at QuickBooks Enterprise. Currently, and again, the subscription is now an annual subscription. So once you start this, you have to pay this annually. Whereas we used to just get by with upgrading every 3 years. But now it's an annual. So as far as your budgets go ahead and budget that for next year, that this is going to be a price increase. As far as QuickBooks Online goes, QuickBooks Online still does not support, for payroll purposes, VRS. So if you don't do your payroll, you could potentially use QuickBooks Online, but I still think QuickBooks Desktop is the better product. And probably still less expensive than QuickBooks Online once you add in the monthly fees for QuickBooks Online. The price break at going from QuickBooks Desktop Pro Plus up to QuickBooks Enterprise is about 8 employees. Once you get over 8 employees, it makes sense to go ahead and move on to the QuickBooks Enterprise. QuickBooks Enterprise looks exactly like QuickBooks Pro Plus. It looks exactly like what you're doing now. So there's not any real major changes. It is a little bit of a memory hog. So if you have an older computer, you would probably need to upgrade to a little bit better computer. That's basically all I wanted to share. I just really wanted to reiterate that you're not looking at losing QuickBooks. I don't know what Intuit's long-term goal is. Hopefully they will stick with QuickBooks Enterprise at least for a number of years. So that piece of it won't go away. I did talk with an Intuit executive in January. He was actually in Ireland for a month. So we talked back and forth a little bit by email, and I expressed my concerns that you all were concerned, and that we didn't feel like QuickBooks Online was an option. And I think that's where QuickBooks is pushing everybody. He's supposed to be getting me in touch with someone else that can discuss other payroll options for QuickBooks Online. But there are a lot of other payroll providers that will link into QuickBooks Online, like Gusto and ADP. So those could be used potentially for QuickBooks payroll if you decided to go that route. But I think statewide, if everybody can stay on QuickBooks Desktop for now, I think that would be your better option. And then at some point, if they decide QuickBooks Online is the only option, then we can look at converting everybody up about the same time. That makes sense?
I see some questions in the chat box, so guys, feel free to come off mute and ask Sarah your questions. For example, Keith, I think you asked, what's the best recommendation for less than 8 employees?
It's going to be your QuickBooks Desktop Pro Plus, and that's going to be $649, I think. Let me pull up my documents here. So less than 8 employees, $649 a year for the desktop subscription, plus the enhanced payroll at $550 annually per year, plus $6 per employee per year. It's still going to be a little pricier than what you've got now, but that's going to be your only option. So just budget for that. So if if you have 7 employees, you're going to look at $6 per month for, $42 times 12. That adds up pretty quickly, in addition to your annual subscription.
I think you talked a little bit to Deanna's question, but Deanna, feel free to dive further. Should we be researching for possible future replacement of QuickBooks if the future is uncertain? And I don't know that we're there yet, but certainly want your guidance and advice, Sarah.
Well, there will always be other options that you can consider, and even today there may be 5 options, and then in 12 months there may be 10 options. As I feel like as QuickBooks moves out of the market a little bit, there's going to be others that will move into the market. So there will be options. I don't know that now's the time to jump ship, but there's no reason why you can't start looking for anything else that might be an option. But I really do feel like QuickBooks has been good for the district, and it's nice that you all are somewhat standardized across the state.
Happy Clark, feel free to come off mute too. She dropped in the chat box, are there any options for allowing multiple employees to have access to QuickBooks Pro while using laptops? They tried QuickBooks Enterprise and it was not a good experience. So I guess I'd love your thoughts, Sarah, about the first question. And then Kathy, I'd really love to know more about why you thought QuickBooks Enterprise might not have been a viable option.
Well, if you want employees, if you maybe had QuickBooks on 2 different desktops, and maybe one desktop was kind of reserved for general employee use, you could easily use a product like TeamViewer, which is what I use to remote into your all's computers if you have issues. So you can use TeamViewer even within the office. I mean, you don't have to be outside of the office, which is really what it's designed for. It's just a remote access program. But you can use that, from anywhere. So any computer from anywhere can access it as long as it knows the ID and the password. So that's definitely an option if you want to have employees access QuickBooks. It's probably not the best option if you have QuickBooks just on one desktop that's on the district director's computer, because they do have to be able to access it and use it. It will give them access to the whole desktop, not just QuickBooks. So like I said, if you had one dedicated computer that was used for general purposes, that really just had QuickBooks on it and nothing else that was sensitive information. Does that answer your question, Kathy? I don't know what kind of experience you had with Enterprise that was not good. If you were using it in multi-user mode, it can be slow, it can be a little chunky, and that's where it really matters what kind of computer you're running it on. If you're doing certain, and this happens with any kind of multi-user experience, but if you're doing certain functions like bank recs, you have to be in single user mode. So you have to, pretty much knock everybody else out while you're doing those particular functions. But QuickBooks Enterprise really should operate pretty much like QuickBooks Pro, other than the fact that it's a memory hog and you do need some pretty good computers with some processing speed. And I don't know how many people use servers within the office, but QuickBooks Enterprise is really designed to be a server based program. So it works a little bit better in a server environment.
This is Kathy.
Uh-huh.
So all of our employees now have laptops. So we've done away with like that traditional in-house network computer. And we have a need for myself and Joanna to both be able to be in QuickBooks at the same time doing our own tasks. And so when we went to QuickBooks and went to Intuit and asked them what products they could offer, Enterprise was the only thing that they could offer us. And they sold it to us under the auspice that it was going to act as a server, which is essentially what we needed because our company file is so large. And when I went ahead and downloaded it and started to set it up, I was a little taken back because Enterprise is its own system in itself, in that it had QuickBooks, it had Microsoft products. So it wasn't going to allow me to connect to my existing Microsoft suite. And then we had such a hard time with getting it downloaded. We weren't getting any response from Enterprise, from that division. And so we ended up canceling, and just right now we have Desktop Pro on my laptop, and I'm the only person that can get in there. But we are looking to explore other options for how we can get multiple employees in there simultaneously.
Well, you can buy multiple user options for Desktop Pro. So that's definitely an option if you want me to log in and help you do that at some point in time. It's, as long as your computers will talk with each other, you just have to have that ability. I mean, the company file has to sit on one computer. So wherever, if your laptops aren't hardwired together, they at least have to be wirelessly able to talk to each other, so that you can access that company file on one computer. And your comment about it being that it wouldn't let you use your own Microsoft products, I'm not sure. That must have been some kind of configuration issue when it got installed, because that shouldn't have happened. QuickBooks Enterprise really is just, there may be some options with it to have you to be able to download Microsoft Office, but that should be an option and not a automatic download. At least on the last QuickBooks Enterprise that I installed, that was the case.
Sarah, what's the pricing for Enterprise? Do you know? How does that compare?
Enterprise is $1,830, but it includes payroll and free direct deposit. So it's $1,830 annually. But you're getting close to that by adding in your Pro Plus and your enhanced payroll and your monthly fee. Like I said, it's about an 8-person break even.
Other questions for Sarah or any QuickBook questions? I think I've captured the ones in the chat box, but there's bound to be one I might have missed, so this is your last chance.
I can be here for a few more minutes if anybody has any questions. And like I said, if you're having issues with anything, you can give me a call and I can always remote in and try to help you out.
I appreciate it, Sarah. You're working with a handful of districts now, correct?
I am.
It shows online that Pro Plus stopped in 2022. Kathy Shamblin, do you want to come off mute and make sure we understand your question?
Well, let me tell you one thing, that you can't go online and purchase Pro Plus. You do have to call into it and tell them that's the product that you want. Like I said, they're pushing QuickBooks or QuickBooks online, and so it's very difficult to buy anything on their website that's not online anymore. But you can call and they are selling it.
Any availability for that at all, so.
I have QuickBooks Premier 2023. And I have that on my laptop, but I also have the online as well, support with that. So that was a good option for us. So it's like I can, which I hate doing the online, just like somebody else put it in the chat box, it's not great. But having the Premier 2023 also allows all of the updates and everything with the online.
We
So
on airs, I have the 2022 premiere as well.
the Premier 2023, they have a Premier 2024 as well.
Oh, okay.
So, and it's a good option. It looks just, I just kind of updated that from my older QuickBooks desktop and I have it on my laptop. And that also has options for, like you said, if you want to pay for multi-users, our district, we wouldn't have that, but some districts, I'm not sure, Sarah, if they would be able to be in there at the same time. Just not sure.
Yeah, Premier basically is QuickBooks Pro Plus amped up for other things like inventory and sales order, and it's got a lot of manufacturing things in it. It's probably not a product that you need because of all of those bells and whistles. The Pro Plus is probably all you need. But you're right, you're getting, maybe some other options. But I think the additional user, you're still going to pay for your additional user under the Premier the same way you would with Pro Plus or Enterprise. And those additional users used to cost like $199 a user, and I think they've increased the pricing on that as well. So if you're looking at multi-user, it does add up.
Sarah, do you have a number for, Rhonda asked what's the number to call QuickBooks? Do you have it's not easy to find, I understand. I don't even know that I know what it is. So do you have a number?
Let me look and see if I've got something. I have so many numbers, so we'll see.
Oh. Sheila uses the contact us within QuickBooks.
That you can, if you go to help in QuickBooks, and I don't have QuickBooks set, but it's I think it's just the help or contact us, and you can click on that and it'll ask you what your phone number is, and they'll usually contact you back within 5 minutes. If they're real busy, it might take a little longer, but generally it's 5 minutes. So you can definitely get a hold of someone that way. I have a QuickBooks customer service number. Because I'm a pro advisor, I don't use this very often because I usually call my pro advisor people. So you can try this. It's 1-800-200-7599. See if I've got any. And then I've got an Intuit sales number for payroll. But whoever you purchase it from, I'm sure they can get your payroll. But the payroll number is 1-833-782-2177. Then I've got another number for Intuit Sales, 1-800-458-8132. But your better option might be to do it within QuickBooks and just ask them to contact you. You typically type in there what your issue is, and you may want to just type in that you're interested in purchasing QuickBooks Pro Plus 2024.
Well, I'm glad you hung on a few minutes longer. There were some additional questions that folks were sitting on. I'm gonna say last chance. Sarah, I really do appreciate you coming and making sure we're all clear on QuickBooks support and really what's best for districts.
You're very welcome. I am going to drop off and let you all finish the rest of your morning.
I appreciate it. Feel better.
If anybody has questions, my phone number is 276-889-4950. And my email address is Sarah, SARAH, at Adams, ADAMS, CPAS.com. All right, you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Drop Sarah's contact information in the chat box if you need it. Certainly, she's been a really good resource, and I know a handful of you on the line actually use her for support. For example, I think Loudon just recently started working with her to help cover some of their book needs also. So certainly a good resource for districts if you need it. Anything QuickBooks side before I toss it to Blair and ask you to walk through some desktop? Okay, so Blair put out recently a request for any changes to the desktop fiscal guide and collected all of those and has been in the process of trying to review, accommodate, and take that feedback into revisions that might be going into the desktop guide itself. Certainly, Blair, hoping you can give us an update in the process, recognizing there is still room for change, and what she's sharing with you is by no means final because it goes before the Soil and Water Board during their spring meeting sequence. So Blair, if you can talk to us about changes that you see on the horizon, walk us through those as well as the process itself.
I would be more than happy to. Kendall, do you want to let me share my screen and I will pull up the desktop guide with the track changes so everybody can see what we're talking about?
Excellent. You should have access now. Sorry about that.
No, no problem. Let me make sure I grab the right one. Here we go. Got so many windows open. Perfect. I hope everybody can see that. Well, the desktop guide, desktop procedures for district fiscal operations is updated every other year. We do it on the opposite cycle of the budget template because doing both of those things in one year really stresses me out. So, so we do them opposite years of each other. It is the year of desktop procedures updates. We did put this out for comment through all districts. I also sent it through my personal, I think all admin managers distribution list as well. And I got a few comments back from a couple of folks. I really appreciate those. Always good to get feedback. The auditors are actually still, they have not sent me their comments yet, but they may have a few comments. The auditors, as part of their process, also always look at the desktop procedures for any potential changes that might need to be added in or something that needs to be updated that might be like an antiquated process. This year, Sherry Tromberg from Shin Valley, she's their admin there. She's actually a professional copy editor. in her life before the district. And she offered and has gone through the desktop guide or desktop procedures as just a copy editing. So you're going to see a lot of blue on every page, but that is Sherry doing some copy editing. It is literally where she has capitalized a word that we should have capitalized, like the word director or the word district. She's edited some punctuation for us. She did not make any content changes. She only did the copy editing, just fixing a few things per page where we, it'll make it a little bit more accurate to grammatic laws. We'll go with that. So I'm just going to walk you guys through and show you the changes. The changes are really minor. I think you guys will be really pleased that nothing we have changed will alter how you are currently operating, except for one piece, and that is on the verification of public accounts, which we will get to when we get to that page. But you all should have received some communications about that from your CDCs already. So if not, you will shortly. We've been working out some of the kinks with the Department of Treasury, making sure we have all the details. So, but I'm just going to walk you guys through this. It won't take long. There are just not that many changes. I'm not going to discuss all the blue text because that's where Sherry was just adding a capitalization or something. It's not worth a discussion. No change in content. Anything in red is truly new or updated information. So obviously we're just updating some dates here. Content, table of contents has stayed the same. We didn't add any new sections or anything like that this year. No reorganization of anything this year. Again, you see this blue, this is just where Sherry was doing some copy editing for us, but the content is all the same. So I'll scroll on down. What I've done here in section 2 for board requirements and responsibilities, we've taken out the are encouraged to attend 75% of the monthly board meetings, and we've changed it to are encouraged to attend the monthly board meetings. We just want them to show up to everything, directors to come to everything as much as possible. And we thought the 75% was being leaned on a little hard by some directors as, oh, well, I'm really only required to show up 75% of the time. It's like, no, you're required to show up all of the time. So we're taking the 75% out because people were using it as kind of a crutch. And then here, if you guys should be aware that we have been updating the new director orientation process, the director training process. So this just references where we've changed from the director handbook to the director resource notebook. All directors will be receiving a new director resource notebook that we have just recently developed. It is replacing the old district orientation notebook. We'll be talking about it in the area meetings at the phase 2 session. Your CDCs will be distributing these. It is going to all directors, not associate directors, just your elected and your 2 appointed directors will receive hard copies. That's all the budget we had to print. And it's also available online, and that is already up and running on the DCR webpage. And so here is where we're just kind of reminding folks that they have this resource available to them, that they should go through and look at it. And it will be, and the link to the online training will be posted. We also talk about the online training that we're doing with the VASWCD through their website, utilizing their director leadership course as our required phase 1 training for director orientation. So that link will also be listed in here as well. So this is just a little blurb about the updates. What we've changed here is just to match the updates that we've made to the director training process. You see lots of blue, lots of blue. Thank you to Sherry for taking a lot of time to go through this. Here, we've changed the word record retention to record management because that is what the Library of Virginia actually calls it. And it was referred to as record management in the table of contents, but then record retention down here. So we're just matching it up. Again, just a lot of blue. Under the Finance Committee, this is where we're getting into a lot of our, let's scroll up a minute. Well, under the Finance Committee, we just wanted to kind of better reflect what we actually see happening in the districts, noting that the Finance Committee needs to work closely with staff, because staff is really who's developing these initial budgets and these budget reports and everything. So in order to just kind of recognize the role that staff is playing, we added the words work with staff to develop budgets and budget reports. And you'll see some of that follow through as we're trying to incorporate more of the roles in the treasurer's reports and things like that. You'll see it as well, working closely with appropriate staff to develop treasurer's reports. Or you might see it in some of the personnel management, working alongside the district manager or your executive director when those exist within the district structure. So just trying to incorporate some of more of the reality of what we're seeing in districts. And that probably should have been added in long ago. It's been happening since the dawn of time. So just reflecting that the staff needs to be involved in some of these processes. Again, we're really not changing a whole lot. Let me know if my scrolling makes anybody dizzy. Here's the treasurer's report section, and this is where I was saying, again, on a monthly basis, the treasurer, working closely with appropriate staff, should prepare and disseminate to the board the following financial statements and documents. We all know directors don't have access to your QuickBooks, don't have, you know, access to a lot of your banking stuff. That you're the one actually, admins are generally the ones actually making these reports, and we just wanted to reflect that they need to work with you to make sure that these are completed. Even though they are the treasurer, you're doing a lot of that behind the scenes work. Again, just you see a lot of blue coming through, just making sure. Again, no content changes on that blue stuff. Those are just Sherry correcting the mistakes, making us look more professional. Let's see, nothing changing from here. Lots of the same. Was really happy that we didn't have to change a whole lot here. Here, we're just changing federal depository insurance to the FDIC because that's the more recognized term. This is where we're talking about the Public Deposits Act. This is where we need to talk about the verification of those, the quarterly verification of your bank accounts. So there is a new rule change that has been apparently put in place as of July 1st, but nobody knew about it. The district bank accounts are supposed to be classified as public funds. All bank accounts are supposed to be classified as public funds. As a public entity, you are held to the Virginia Security for Public Deposits Act. Now they are requiring all public entities to verify your bank account information through the Virginia Department of Treasury SPDA account balance search system. And you have to do this on a quarterly basis. So you have to go to their website, which is, which will be linked. Oh, I accidentally deleted it, but it's linked in here, which will be linked in here. And it is, you have to enter in your information, look for your accounts, and verify that your account and your ending quarterly balance from the previous quarter is accurate to your records. So you're going in and you're verifying that information. It's from what I understand, I don't have the ability to log in and like walk you through it because I don't have bank account access to anything. So, but from what I understand from a district or two that have gone through it already, it has been a fairly easy process. Once you set up your login, it's not like having to set up an account with the IRS or anything. You just have to set up your email and who you're with. Once you set up that login too, it will actually send you email reminders for the quarterly deadlines automatically. You don't have to change any settings or anything. It automatically sends you those reminders. And that is honestly the only way that you are going to know about those deadlines is you have to log into the system, start getting those reminders. The deadlines are also listed somewhere in the system. They are not listed on the public website. You need to go into the system to actually find out those dates. So you need to log in and verify these balances quarterly and your accounts quarterly. And this is just general information for you guys, should you find any inaccurate information or a missing bank account, you should contact your bank to make sure that it is being reported. And if it is being reported and everything's lining up from the bank side, you probably need to contact the Department of Treasury to find out why they don't have the information. Or maybe your bank will check on that for you too. But if you find some inaccuracies, you do need to reach out to somebody and make sure they get updated. They probably won't get updated until the following quarter. So just know that it's not one of those systems that just updates all the time. So this language here is just updating the old language that was here about checking to make sure that your bank accounts are being reported as public accounts. This is just updating the language with the new process. This does change. This is maybe the only change that we have here that actually affects your regular operations. Any questions on this particular piece? Because this is brand new information. Again, you should be getting an email from your CDC. If you have not already, the information, we're finalizing some of that information just yesterday with conservation district coordinators. So investment accounts qualify for that. Anything that you're holding at a bank, I don't think if you have like LGIP or investment accounts that they're necessarily going to show up, but all of your accounts should be public accounts. I don't know if your LGIP will show up in this list or not. The LGIP is like reported on its own, but if you're holding your own, like your checking account should definitely show up. And I think if you have any like CDs and stuff, they should probably show up too. Okay, I'm going to keep moving through. This is another, can't read the small print and the changes, but there anything we need to print to verify? No, there's nothing to print to verify that you've completed this quarterly check through the system. I don't think it sends you a confirmation email. It doesn't send you a history or anything. So, you know, it's a pretty simplistic system. The only way we would know that you didn't do it essentially is if balances were really far off, or we were finding accounts that still weren't listed as public accounts when we complete your audit. And that's what we would be looking for, is like, clearly you're not checking quarterly if you still have accounts that aren't showing up in the system. So, and that's really what they're trying to get at, and making sure that accounts balances are actually being reported accurately. But no, there's not. You receive a quarterly letter from your bank, Sheila. Okay, Sheila receives a quarterly letter from her bank, but I don't know that all banks are doing that. But the system will not. I don't think if you wanted to take a screenshot and print that out, you could do that, and might be the best way for you to do that. But I don't think there's any way for Treasury's not going to send you like a confirmation email or anything. So, and we're not going to be, I mean, we're not expecting you to keep any files. Like, I'm not saying you need to keep a file of screenshots or anything to prove to the auditors that, I mean, if you're doing this, you shouldn't be having any issues when we go to check it through your audit process. Yeah, Renee says with Truist, her accounts actually say public funds on the bank statement. Yep, and some of them do that. Some of your smaller banks don't have that level of service. If you're working with like a local credit union or something, they may not do that on all their statements, but this is the easy way to check. We have had some issues with the Farm Bureau Bank not reporting public accounts. They are one that is struggles with the public accounts, and you may need to change some bank accounts from the Farm Bureau Bank. I think those are mostly CDs, but they're not being reported as public. And that has something to do with the bank, the actual Farm Bureau Bank system. Okay, I'm gonna move on. This new language here, and I'll try to make this bigger for you guys. There we go. So hopefully that's better for everybody. My screen is really big, so it's hard to tell what you guys are seeing. I have those giant monitors. This is language that just confirms that districts are authorized to participate in the LGIP. You can move your operations and cost share funds into the LGIP. It doesn't have to be just for your reserves. But if you invest your cost share funds in the LGIP, you still have to keep them as a separate investment account, and all the interest earned on them still has to follow the cost share program. Yeah, Sheila, you just did that as a separate account. We've seen some districts have some really great success with the LGIP and the interest they're earning on their accounts there. So we're just saying that, yes, you are allowed to move money into the LGIP. We also talk about this under reserve funds as well. But we have, in the last like 2 years, since the LGIP became much more familiar to districts, we've seen really great use of the LGIP and really good success. So we feel like it's been really successfully piloted by districts, and have no issue with you moving funds there. It takes a little bit more hands-on management when you're moving money from the LGIP back to your checking account and so forth. So you kind of have to be prepared for that level of financial management, but it is absolutely allowed. If you're doing that, please continue. If you're not doing that, you may want to look into it, because some districts have really earned a lot of really great interest on their funding, enough to pay for a whole nother practice, structural practices. So they're doing well with that so far. So this is just legitimizing that, yes, this is allowed, because we didn't really have it in writing that it was or wasn't. And I just wanted to say, yeah, you can do this.
Blair, this is Deanna. Can I ask a real quick question about that?
Uh-huh.
Is that an account that you can get readily access to cash, or is it like a CD where it's a term?
It is not a term. You can transfer in and out of it as frequently as you want to.
Okay.
There is a very
Deanna?
small fee affiliated with the transferring in and out, but it's pretty tiny. Somebody was chiming in.
Yeah, one thing.
Yeah, this is Sheila. So with the LGIP account, it's very fluid. I just talked to another district and they invested in opened LGIP accounts. So moving money out can be done the same day. You do
Okay.
it by 10 o'clock.
Great.
Very fluid. That's just for the regular LGIP account. And then it's dependent on the bank. When I go in, I have to wire money out to put money into that account. But transferring out money into like your operations or cost share account, you can do that online on the LGIP account. It's very simple. And like I said, it's the same day.
Okay.
It's
Thank you.
straightforward. You're
But
welcome.
to take into account too, like the level of management you want to have over your finances, because you might want to say, okay, I don't want to move money on like a daily or weekly basis. I want to move money maybe only once a month. So I'm going to kind of project my budget out for the month and transfer that lump sum. It just depends on how hands-on you want to be with those transfers.
Okay. Thank you.
What I would say is, and this is Keith, we're doing some LGIP stuff. What I would say is that I would encourage the association to set up some kind of a training session. We've learned quite a bit in the last 6 months that we've done this, and it costs money to transfer money into the fund, but you can transfer money internally with no fees. So there can be some substantial cost savings and administrative savings in time and management if it's done, I guess, say, using best business practices. So, we learned it through, I won't say making some mistakes, but through being inefficient because we didn't know. So I'd encourage some training sessions on that.
Yeah, Keith, I think that's a great idea. I'm sure we could set up a webinar with Department of Treasury, LGIP staff. They seem to be really communicative. So I'll work with Kendall and maybe we can get a webinar set up.
Another real quick question. What is the interest earned based on? Is it based on rates at at what?
It's based on right now, basically what they're doing is investing in mutual funds. And right now we've been getting 5.5% over about the last 6 months.
Oh, okay, great.
We just started the application process too. I'm waiting on our accounts to settle with the LGIP people so we can move money from Airbank, but we're hoping that we're gonna have good return on it as well. This is Kathy.
This is Tara. We've been using
Yeah, it's just-
LGIP. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
It's a fairly easy process. I mean, there's a PowerPoint also on their website, because I did a PowerPoint presentation at Hanover Caroline for LGIP for them to get started, because Sharon was interested in that. So it's fairly straightforward. I mean, like I said, each individual bank is going to be different for the fees that they charge, as you know, because every bank is different. So.
Tara, have you been using it long?
Yes, we've been using it for a while, and they are so good to work with. And when you want your money, you can get it. When you want to make a deposit, I found it very easy, and we have been using it for quite a while, LGIP. So I highly recommend it as well. The interest rates are up and down. There for a while, the interest rates were very low, but they have come up now. And to like 5.5, like Keith said, but we are very pleased using LGIP. Yep.
Thanks, guys. We'll continue this LGIP discussion and maybe set up some training. We'll look into that. So it's been, I know for the districts who utilized it, it has been incredibly successful and easy. So it's here we're just kind of saying like, yeah, absolutely, just kind of firming up that language. Let's see. Again, you just see lots of blue. That's no content changes. That's just Sherry making us better. Reorganizing some sentences for us on occasion. Let's see here. Down to segregation of duties. You see lots of blue. Again, I didn't make many actual changes. This is the old language down in the reserve funds. These are for your reserve monies, where you're also encouraged to participate in the LGIP. We just changed the word that districts have the option to districts are also encouraged. It just seemed happier. Just encouraging folks to participate because it has been so successful. So really no substantial change there. Again, kind of keeping everything very much the same. That is just a word change to get rid of some non-inclusive language. So here in your sales section, this is where when you sell like a watershed book or something, we have these three-part receipt books. But some districts are actually using, like you might be in the office and you're entering it into QuickBooks or into QuickBooks right away. And so we wanted to reflect, and it's down here, I added some language that says, in the instance the sales receipts are immediately entered into QuickBooks, a copy of the receipt should be printed and given to the payer if present, and a copy should be printed and maintained with the deposit documentation files. And then of course you've got the record of it within your QuickBooks already. So that kind of acts as like your three-part receipt book. However, we know and we're aware that we also have a couple of districts who are using systems like PayPal and Venmo for maybe donations or selling, like I said, selling watershed books, I know is one where they use it. So we're actually going to work with someone there to also include some language about what happens when you're using those online payment systems. Generally, they automatically generate an email receipt to the person who's making the payment, the payer. And then, Venmo, even for personal use, sends like a monthly statement of receipts and expenditures. So we're going to look into and talk with the auditors as well about how to better capture that more modern process, because we don't want to stay too far behind the times. So, and we're already probably like a decade late. So but so we're going to add, so this is one section that may get some additional language that will reflect you know, how things should flow when you're using one of those online payment programs for sales.
Blair, you got a question before you move on in the chat box from Renee Davis. I don't know if you can see it, but could invoice approval mirror the check signing policy? If over 1,000, then we would need 2 approvals. However, if under 1,000, then only 1 approval is needed.
Got me that section. I scrolled so fast, I forgot where we were. Oh, haven't gotten there yet. There are multiple ways to do invoice approvals. And depending on, you can have your own policy for it. I mean, obviously we have some requirements within here. And I'm looking for that language because I've looked at so much right now, going through all of this constantly in the last couple of days, that it's all blurred together. Bill paying, cashier payments, 2 checks, 1099s, all still the same. Sales tax use exemption. Hey, Renee, I'll get to your question when we get to that section in the desktop guide, so we can look at the language exactly as it's written. Because I honestly don't remember it off the top of my head.
Good.
Sales and use tax exemption, that has stayed the same. Just remember that you shouldn't be paying sales tax on any of your purchases. District credit cards, here, the only language we changed is just, it honestly just rearranged the sentence a little bit. That you can keep an original receipt or a scanned copy of the receipt with the corresponding invoice and credit card statement. So do remember that that is an original or a scanned copy. Either is acceptable.
Blair, I have a question. This is Kathleen. We had some kind of comments and people were talking about the credit card receipts as far as signatures. I know we, in the past, and probably still doing it, that on each receipt that we need 2 signatures on every receipt. Some districts were saying that they have all their receipts and then they have the signature on the monthly statement versus on the actual receipts. Can you clarify what we need to do as far as on each receipt for the credit card?
Says here that each receipt and invoice should be reviewed for accuracy and appropriateness before the payment is made. So a staff member with check signing authorization is completing the reconciliation. Check signing a treasurer or a director also completes the reconciliation. Those are your 2 signatures. We prefer to see each receipt done. Like, it should just be initial, because they should be looking line by line to make sure that all of those receipts match to the expenditures that are on the credit card statement. So we do like to see them have a initial, even just your initials, doesn't have, you know, doesn't have to be the full signature, even just your initials on each receipt, in order to just show that everything was looked through. There have been some districts, I believe, almost like a log And I think some districts have signed like the log sheet where they've logged the receipt and you know, kind of said, this is what should be included on this invoice. And I don't know how the auditors they haven't complained about that, if that's been done. But preferably if you've got like all of your receipts in the file with your credit card statement, they should be initialing like each receipt as they check that it's on that line item on the credit card statement.
Okay, so, because sometimes it just depends
A
on what you're
statement
doing that
approval
month.
is all
Yeah,
that's
you could
needed.
have like
Renee says a
50.
statement approval is all that's needed, and I think it just depends on,
Statement.
we can double check that with the auditors.
Yeah, because sometimes you can have 50 receipts on one month. And I'm
Yeah.
sure in other districts they can have more. So you're having a director sign the receipt plus the district manager or whoever is the admin signing the receipt too. So is
They should
that
be checking because of the credit. Okay, sorry. I'm thinking of when we're looking at like receipts for individual payments, and there's got to be like invoices and stuff. There's like 2 signatures on the
Mhm.
invoices that go with like the check.
Right,
But on a credit card statement, I do think they can sign just the monthly statement and have the receipts all with it. And they're
right,
verifying that they went through and checked line by line. So I think they can just sign the credit card.
right. Like somebody is, of
Invoice.
course, is checking those
Sorry.
receipts. You know, you got 50 charges, you should have 50 receipts, but you don't have to have 2 signatures on every single receipt for the credit
No,
card, not for
it
the other
should be,
invoices.
yeah, like if you got 2 signatures on the credit card statement and you have all the invoice, all the receipts that are, you know, attached to it essentially,
Right.
or filed with it, that should be fine because that should be the director or the staff
Mhm.
person saying, I have been through this line by line and matched
Right.
these receipts to it. But yes, it would be crazy to sign every single receipt for a credit card statement.
Yeah,
But
it's a
they
lot.
should be initialing the top, yeah,
Yeah, got it. Thank you, Blair.
yeah. Sorry, I'm all over the place with it. I've looked through so much of this lately that it is all one big blur at the moment. Like it's been my life for the last couple of days. Trying to get it all ready to go to the state board soon, so. But we didn't change any language in the credit card section, just for everybody's knowledge. We have not changed or updated any processes that you need to follow. So if you're not getting any comments from the auditors now, just keep doing what you're doing. Here we have expense reimbursements, use of personal credit cards, non-travel, and travel. Again, we're not making any changes. These are just some copy editing things. A lot of this blue will honestly get cleaned up. And you won't see all these changes at the state board level because it is just like a capitalization and stuff like that, and it just makes it look too crazy. But I wanted you guys to see, you know, why we weren't, you know, where she's changing the per diem, which is, you know, where she's lowering our capitalization there. Like that is, I'm gonna just accept that change before I send it to the state board so it doesn't look so hard to read. But anything that's an actual word change or policy change is always going to be present. Again, now we're moving into procurement. Again, we have not actually changed anything in procurement, but this is where I wanted to have a conversation with you guys. Under fixed assets inventory, we make the suggestion that $100 is kind of like a minimum threshold for items to be included on your inventory list. It's just a suggestion. You can have a higher value or you can have a lower value. Here at the state, I have to include on my personal inventory list, like my little external hard drive that was probably, I don't know, $50, but it is on my inventory list. Again, this is just a suggestion of a minimum value. It's not something that you can set your own minimum value for your inventory lists. But do you guys think that we need to increase this number for our example? Do you think it needs to be something more like 250? You know, I was researching what items really should be on a inventory list. And I mean, things as simple as desk chairs should be on your inventory list. You know, when it is something that's necessary for office functionality. And desk chairs can be $100, or you can have $1,000 massaging desk chair. Like, so yeah, I see a lot of people have up theirs to 500, and that's totally fine as long as you're following your own inventory policy. I'm happy to make a change to this. We just wanted to make sure we weren't, you know, it is still just a suggested amount. You can set whatever amount you want, but it is still a suggested amount. Here at the state, they're very strict on ours. Ours is really a very minimum threshold. But you certainly don't, you know, if you have to replace a laptop, you used to be able to get a laptop for $300. Not always the case anymore. Certainly maybe not one that can handle some of the mapping and stuff that we're doing these days. So we can update this. I see 500 come through. Maybe I put 300 just to see how it goes. Again, it's just an example of what a minimum could be. You can certainly set higher. But yeah, an inventory of computer storage devices. Yeah. And like I said, I have to put my external hard drive on mine. So depreciation and useful life. So 500 is kind of a common number that keeps coming up. So we can make a change to this. We can update this to many just 500, noting that external storage devices for computers should still be. Okay, I'm gonna leave myself a note so I can update this. I just wanted to get some feedback on that, and it seems like everybody is on the 500 page here, so we can make that update. Again, it is a suggestion for a minimum threshold. You can certainly follow your own procedure, follow your own policy for that. But I will make that a higher threshold. So you'll see that change between now and the state board meeting at the end of the month. We'll make that update. Okay, moving on. Again, not many actual changes. Warning expenditures, discretionary funds, no changes there. Quarterly reports, no changes there. Attachment E's, always a fun time. Don't forget, if you need adjustments to your attachment E, if you need me to add rows to your local funding section or take rows away to make it fit on a page better, let me know. I'm happy to help with those, especially before the Q1 reports are due, because it's much easier to edit that document up front than it is when you've got quarters of data in it. So, but if you have ever Excel does weird things, and sometimes you might be the only person with a cell that isn't working correctly in your attachment E. Shoot me an email, we'll get it fixed for you. Don't ever hesitate to reach out about what you need on your attachment E. Attachment B, budget template exercise. We got the year off this year, but in 2025, we'll be doing it again. So put on your party hats. But no changes there, but do remember that it is coming up in FY25. Federal fund requirements. This is just about where if you are required to have you have any federal funds from grants or anything. And what's required of a federal audit. DCR does provide the federal audit. The federal audit, when we come through and do our audits of the district, if a federal audit is needed, the auditors will just include it as part of the process. And then we get into personnel management. A few little changes here. Again, in personnel management, we're trying to better recognize the involvement of a district manager or executive director, depending on how your district is organized and structured. So here we're talking about in the personnel policy with hiring. We want the board, so the ultimate responsibility of hiring and terminating an employee or salary increases or decreases rests with the board. The board is the ultimate decider on those things. However, they should be doing that in close consultation with the district manager and executive director when such positions exist. within the structure of the district. Because the district manager and that executive director, the district manager is going to be the one working daily with those employees, and managing them, doing their employee evaluations, things like that. So we're just trying to say, utilizing that district manager position a little more, putting into paper what we're seeing actually happen in districts. Same with hiring a new employee. Once the board selects the individual it desires to employ, in close consultation with the district manager, executive director, just kind of tying in some of the reality of districts with district managers and executive directors, what's being done and how they should be, the board should be working with those people and utilizing that knowledge of the district office and district employees and what the district needs.
Blair, you have a comment in the chat from Renee
Yeah.
about, I certainly recognize this as board of directors and in consultation with, is there anything about needing to script the personnel committee role?
That's right, and they do a lot of this with the personnel committee as well. So we do have, we can certainly add some of that language in. Some districts utilize their personnel committee and their personnel committee chair a little bit more closely than others. So we can certainly add some language in to reflect the personnel committee as well. Yeah, good comment. Okay. Again, just adding in that the board of directors and the district manager and executive director, which will be working together, and maybe the personnel committee. Oh, and then we get into FLSA. No real changes there. Again, just saying, adding a little bit of language to be more inclusive of who all's involved in these processes. Timesheets, adding some clarifying language here. Timesheet should be prepared and signed by each district employee and approved by his or her immediate supervisor. Every district kind of organizes this a little bit differently. An immediate supervisor might be your board chair or your personnel committee chair. An immediate supervisor in some districts may actually be like a senior conservation staff who's supervising a new conservation staff person. It could be a district manager. So we were just kind of clarifying that could be a number of people depending on how you have structured your district and your staff. Again, so that is just trying to be a little bit more inclusive of what we're seeing in practice. Continuing to see really no changes throughout the rest of this document. Again, salary adjustments with your pay action sheets. Obviously, salary adjustments do need to be acted on by the full board. And then you need to be documenting that action on the pay action sheet. And when a lot of times it'd be great if you just have your pay action sheet in the board meeting with you, your director can sign it right then and there. If you don't have it with you, that's fine. The board could give authority to the district manager or executive director to sign the pay action sheet, or another board member to sign the pay action sheet back at the office at another time, as long as that documentation exists, the action is documented in the board meeting minutes. When you do that salary change, salary changes are obviously approved at the full board level. So as long as you have that approval by the full board, we're saying a designated board member or district manager can sign those pay action forms. And it's backed up by the action the board is actually taking in their board meeting. They've made the motion, they've approved the pay raises. So you're just making sure that documentation was filled out. And that may be, these would be listed as an action of a closed session, correctly? So they might be, you may not be listing out like an exact dollar amount. It could, but you are listing out, like that you know, the board is authorizing the raises as budgeted for. And the exact, yeah, you don't necessarily have to lift out the exact amount in the board meeting minutes, but it does have to, there does have to be action in a open board meeting that raises are being authorized. You can't actually take any, just to clarify, you can't actually take any action in a closed session. You can, however, decide on a payment amount or percentage for a raise, and then when you make the full board motion, you don't have to list the exact dollar amount in the full board motion. However, Deanna is correct. Compensation is subject to FOIA. If anybody were to ask for an exact dollar amount, you do have to provide that information. Yes, Melissa, that's correct. The board can adopt the decision as discussed during the closed meeting. Yep. But it does have to come back to the full board to make the formal approval.
And
Yep.
that should be in your treasurer's report as well. I mean, if you're doing a treasurer's report in the budget, wouldn't it have your staff's salary in there?
It depends on how it's broken out, because sometimes your salary might include, like, it might be, depends on how you've organized your treasurer's report. And yes, it does show up as staff salary, but sometimes I think your staff salary may not be as broken down, so that might include some of your other expenses related to it. Depends on how you've organized your treasurer's report.
Because I know when I've had my audit that the auditors actually look for that in the minutes as far as a salary raise or if it was extra compensation in the minutes.
Yeah, you have to
So
have
that
approval in the
should be in
minutes,
the
but
minutes.
your minutes don't necessarily have to say an exact dollar amount of the approved increase.
Mhm.
Because you can discuss that in a closed session, but again, it has to be documented on the pay action form. And if anybody in an open meeting, or if anybody just emails you and asks for the exact amount somebody was given a raise of, or the exact amount somebody's salary is, like, those salaries are public information, so you do have to provide that.
Yeah, because I think most of the districts receive that FOIA request yearly from Open the Books.
Yeah.
And they
Absolutely.
ask for that salary, and that's FOIA.
All the time.
Yeah.
We've already all gotten that, or I have already and done that.
Oh,
It
fun.
comes, yeah, fun.
Okay. Moving on, again, not really any changes moving forward. I think that might sum up all of the, yep, that summarizes all of our edits. Like I said, all of the real content edits are in red. So that summarizes all the edits of the desktop guide. I don't think it really, other than that quarterly verification for your public accounts, there are no major changes to how your daily operations should be working. So pretty minor stuff here. This is what we plan to take to the state board at their meeting at the end of the month. And they will look at it in March. They will approve it in, no, let me take that back. The audit subcommittee will first look at this and then make a recommendation to the board. So just FYI, the audit subcommittee meets in March. They will make a recommendation and send this to the full state board at the March meeting as well. So of course, we will do a printing of this. Each district will get 2 copies, one for the office, one for the treasurer. Like we have previously done. And there will be an updated version available online as well. So it is always downloadable, should you need to download it for any other additional staff members or directors who may want additional copies. So any questions about the process for the desktop guide, desktop procedures? Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen then.
Well, Blair, I really appreciate you going through it. We had enough questions and asks that I think, even though it took a little time, the overview was really helpful and a good refresher on some topics too.
Yeah, happy to help, happy to share. I have to keep it an open process. So This will be, the desktop procedures will be effective as of July 1 for the 2025 fiscal year. And we will do this again in we'll take a year off and do it again next time. So thank you guys.
I will say, Blair, one question I got directly in here, and I think you can speak to it too, is someone under attachment D budget template asked me and said, you said that this would impact us this year. So you completed your budget template last year, but
Mhm.
that completion, that number will be used by the Soil and Water Board. So your allocation amount will likely be changing this spring during their spring meeting sequence based on your budget template submission you did last year. So making sure you understood the difference maybe of what I said in terms that budget template is going to impact you because of your allocation amount. You're not necessarily completing a budget template again this summer, to Blair's point. Did I get that right, Blair?
We complete the budget template every other year, and the state board reevaluates allocations based on those submissions every other year as well. So this year we will reevaluate the 2025 allocation amounts based on the budget templates that you submitted last time, and those will be set for 2025 and 2026. So during fiscal year 2025, we will complete the budget template as a projection of your budget for fiscal year 27. It's quite a cycle. It is quite a confusing cycle, but we try to stay on top of it. So yes, you will see changes to your allocation in your 2025 grant agreements. And that will be a direct reflection of your previous budget template submission that you did last year. And then this year we'll be doing a new budget template submission, looking forward to 2027.
Questions for Blair on any of this or in general? I mean, I know we put DCR updates. Blair, if there's anything else you wanted to capture in your items for update or questions at this point?
Sure. I can talk a little bit about what to expect from the state board meetings if anybody is curious. So how the state board meetings work through the spring. In March on the 20, what day do we have our state board meeting?
Wednesday,
Yep.
March 27th in Cumberland.
Yeah, it's at Bear Creek Lake State Park. It will focus, we will have the audit subcommittee first thing in the morning at 9. And they will be reviewing the audit results from the audit rounds that just were completed in January. They'll be reviewing those results, taking any action necessary there. And then they will be reviewing the changes to the desktop procedures, making recommendations to the state board for any actions that need to be taken, and for the approval of the procedures. In March, at the same meeting, the state board will hear from the audit subcommittee, but one of their big ticket items will be their first review of the changes to the B&P manual for program year 25. They'll be going through those changes, having some discussion, questions, things like that. DCR will present all the changes to the specs and the guidelines section at that time. And then in March, they do not actually take any action on the B&P manual. It is just a review of the updates. And then they take it all home, they digest it, they think about it, and they come to the April board meeting where they review the changes one more time and actually make the approvals. So yes, Deanna, you do have a chance to review the proposed changes to the B&P manual before approval. Approval does not happen until April. So all of those changes will be publicly released in March at the board meeting. And you can have a chance to review them. And the formal approval does not happen until the April board meeting. So we have about a 2-week period to make any necessary changes based on board feedback or public feedback. Although all of these changes do come from the TAC process. So do keep in mind that the recommendations that are moving forward are the recommendations from the TAC. DCR, however, does do some recommendations to the guidelines section that are policy driven and program driven. So they may not have gone forward to the TAC because they are in the guidelines section, but all the spec changes are what has come from the TAC process. So all those changes will be presented in March. Everybody takes it home, thinks about it, comments on it, and the final approval is at the April board meeting. The April board meeting date has not been set yet.
Anna, to your point, also in the March, April timeframe, so your association, myself, and usually one of our leadership team attends that meeting, gives our partner report, takes all of their public materials, and then puts them in a Radar Box account or Dropbox and sends them out to the admin listserv. So I will make sure we get the BMP manual out for you, but then usually in the April timeframe, if we have the timeline right with a budget and appropriate action the Soil and Water Board can take, then your grant agreement drafts and your allocation amount drafts would all be sent out to you for review before they approve them at the following board meeting for the Soil and Water Boards.
So
Go ahead.
Kendall, you jumped ahead of me. Yeah, that's exactly where I was going next. In April, the big ticket items for the board is their approval of the BMP manual, and then it is their first viewing of the policy documents and grant agreements for your operations and your cost share programs and your technical assistance. Now, depending on what happens with the budget, your April version generally does not include numbers, all depending on what happens with the budget. So if we have a budget, we might have numbers in the policy document and grant agreements and stuff. If we don't have a budget, we may not have numbers. It all just depends on what's happening with the General Assembly. So, but that'll be your first opportunity to see changes to your 2025 grant agreements and updates to the grant deliverables for 2025 as well. So those will go in April for their first review by the board, and will be open, obviously for comment. And then the board will meet again in May. And in May, their big ticket item is the approval of the allocations, is the approval of the policy documents and the grant agreements, assuming we have budgets that we can actually work off of. So if we can't do those approvals for the money in May, we push it till June or until we finally get a signed budget from the governor. So we've had that happen last couple of years. We're used to it by now. We try to push those grant agreements out to you guys as fast as possible for board action, for your local board action once we have those, once we have a budget from the governor. So, but those are kind of the big ticket items. March, first viewing of the BMP manual. April is the approval of the BMP manual and the first viewing of your grant agreements and policy documents. Then in May, we have the approval of your policy documents and grant agreements as the big ticket items. So, and then of course, also in March, the audit subcommittee meets. They'll be viewing the audit results, making recommendations to the board for those results, as well as the desktop procedures. And then typically the audit subcommittee does not meet again until September, until the next quarterly board meeting. So speaking of September, just putting this on everybody's radar since we have a number of admins on the call. It is the year that we have extension agent appointments coming up for your board members. Extension agent terms will expire at the end of December, at the end of this calendar year. So we will be looking to take extension agent appointments to our September board meeting. Please recall that this is a process that does require your local board to nominate your extension agent, but extension agents also need to be working with their extension district director and their extension leadership to make sure that that is the assignment they want them to have, the extension agents to have, the workload they want the extension agents to carry. We also, as DCR, work closely with extension leadership to confirm all of those appointments. So, but we will start that process, and start sending reminders about paperwork that we need in in the early summertime. Deanna, you had a extension agent appointed in an off cycle. So yes, that only finishes the term they are currently serving. So they will have to be reappointed again. So anytime you have any director appointed to fill a vacancy during an off cycle, they are only filling the remainder of the term. It is not a full 4-year appointment. It is only for the remainder of the term that they are taking on.
Blair, that's really helpful. And for folks asking questions about how they can have input and review and the BMP manual and the grant agreement deliverable changes, keep in mind too that yes, we're there and I'm happy to get feedback. Blair's happy to get feedback. You have an area representative on the Soil and Water Board.
Yeah, reach out to your area rep.
Right, absolutely. You'll be introduced to them at your spring meeting. If you don't know who it is, again, happy to connect you, but that individual is representing your area and bringing issues that you might have. So if you see something that really needs to be flagged, by all means, please reach out to me or reach out to Blair, but please keeping that area representative in the loop too, so they can speak to you on your behalf at the board meeting. Okay. Any questions for Blair on bigger picture DCR updates? I know we're pushing right at 11:30 and we said right at an hour and a half. So I'm going to give some brief updates just to let you know where the association is headed and items, but you'll hear more details in depth at your area meetings. Hopefully many of you joined the recent Zoom that we held for internships and employee recruitment. We had Virginia Tech Career Services on board to offer us some guidance. We recorded it. It's on our website. Please use that as a resource. I've heard from a handful of you that are now starting to develop intern programs. We have a few on the horizon. I wrote down notes about the local government investment pool, maybe to do a training on. So we'll start working with that with Blair. We have an Excel tip training request that we'll look at for May or June. April 3rd is our quarterly board meeting. It's a little bit later than we've normally held for the association, but we did that intentionally this session cycle because we wanted to follow the March 27th Soil and Water Board meeting. We wanted the association leadership to be able to hear an update from DCR on those items like the BMP manual, be able to offer input. So not only be keeping maybe your area representative on the Soil and Water Board in the loop, but your area chair for the association, because we purposefully have tried to pair our meeting following it. We'll be talking about these similar type items and how your districts are impacted and how we can help in any conversation. April 3rd is open to anybody. We're at the Drury Hotel in Richmond area, right near Innsbruck and Short Pump. The all district went out. It was in our announcement section. Make sure you register. We'd love to have you for that one. Brings a lot of good stakeholder partners together and encourage you to come hear it directly from them and engage in that conversation. We are excited to announce we have filled our education and outreach coordinator position. We had a candidate, Byron Minson, accept the position a couple days ago. She'll be starting with us March 18th. I can't thank y'all all enough for how much grace and patience you had while we tried to fill this. It certainly wasn't because we weren't trying. Let's put it that way. We are excited. She'll start March 18th, so she'll miss a couple of your area meetings, but she will hit the road with us that week and see you at Area 3 and Area 4, and we'll be on the road to get to your envirothons too. If you're interested in education topics, I encourage you to join the education committee, which is meeting March 18th, her start date at 3 p.m. And we've been working with Rich and Jennifer, who are our co-chairs on that one, to really frame our conversation for that point. On the legislative update side, I will gladly talk more at area meetings. Budget amendments have been our big priority. One of the ones that might really impact you is that on the House side, not in the Senate, the House version of the budget, they did include $3 million additional for admin ops funding in line with your budget template. So we used the budget template you did last July. We got those data figures from DCR, we rolled them up, and we requested the additional $3 million that you asked for. Again, the House version of the budget is the only one that has included it at this point. So you saw a legislative update yesterday, go all district. really for that final push, because conferees, those that are appointed from the House and Senate to negotiate the differences between the budget, started meeting Sunday and meet this week, and in an ideal world would have a budget this week before they adjourn. I don't know if that will likely happen, but either way, there are deliberations happening right now on our topics and topics of even bigger importance necessarily. Things like the Alexandria Arena and other items are certainly taking top billing at the General Assembly. Either way, if you didn't see that legislative agenda update, please pull it up, read it. Thank you to the many districts who took that and turned it into some bullet points to email to the conferees in those emails that I actually listed in there. We want to encourage them to include your admin ops funding, to include additional small dam repair funding, to include those 2 positions to support engineering, as well as maintain a handful of things like positions at DCR where funding would be expiring. I'll stop there on legislative items 2. Are there any questions? I kind of ran through a little bit of an update pretty quickly, but wanted to at least make sure you had some high points before we wrapped up. And then one of the last things I want to do, I'm dropping it in box. I'm dropping our box link into your chat box, and we'll be not necessarily going through it in detail because I know time constraints for us today, but annually we take a look at our annual plan of work. And like I said, I dropped the link in the chat box. I encourage you to take a look at it. A lot of this, I think, still stands for where we need as a committee this year to head in terms of meeting quarterly, sharing activities across the state. That's really what those first top ones are. Assessing training needs, especially on these 3 areas that you focused on last year and how we could do that. Certainly, we've done some work that we want to follow up with you maybe in our next meeting. We did that needs assessment to determine HR training needs closer to the end of last year. I've shared it with our board leadership, but really want to get it in front of you. It's starting to guide some direction for us as an association in terms of looking into some additional HR support items like the VCU Performance Management Group or online sources through Covey. So we can spend some time talking about those topics at the next committee meeting. Some of the other items, just so you at least have the big points. Offering assistance through operational trainings. Some of this can already be changed to reflect, right? We did a virtual HR training last year, as well as an in-person one in December. We did our May in-person training with a consultant who came and spoke in Richmond, and many of you attended. So we can update those and put in some of the ideas that you've started developing today that we've been jotting down of what training needs there are, but don't want those to be the limiting ones. So certainly into our next committee conversation and start thinking about what training needs you have and how does that fold in with employees association and annual meeting and where's the best fit for all of those. We had provide guidance to our association and employees associations. So ensuring your chairs or someone from the committee is serving on these other venues like the planning committee. Annual meeting planning committee will get started later this spring. We're at the Hotel Roanoke, December 8th through 10th. So save the date and plan to join us around the May timeframe when we kick that off. One we haven't really focused on this past year as well as maybe we could is to provide a mentoring network for admin staff. So we have our admin listserv, which I want you to use and connect with your own fellow admin folks if you have questions, but really maybe developing a mentor list for distribution to see where we have strong points and can support each other even more. We have the personnel management binder. We did review that binder last year for some needed edits and additions. We did that in the spring timeframe when we had our speaker on HR come. She did provide us a number of new handouts that we provided on our website, but we could maybe formalize that a little bit more into the actual personnel management guide. So maybe we'll do some cleaning up on that, but certainly recognize annually we want to look at that. That's a living document. And if there are resources that need to be added or examples updated, we want your help. And then really the last one that you added last year that we worked on is director training opportunities. We've coordinated with DCR to assist with new director training this spring. We've done a number of other topics like in April, there will be a director networking chat conversation in the evening for folks to join. I'm also going to share one last thing to make sure you're in the know. Let's see if I can pull this up for you. On our website, many of you have started completing the new director training modules. I'm really excited about those of you who've gone on board and actually seen it. From our front page, you can see the online self-paced training course. If you click here, it takes you to a page that provides you a little bit of overview of what those modules go through. Here's the link to the director resource notebook that Blair talked about that every director will get. Not just new directors, every director will get. So here you can find it online also. And then when you click any of these basic knowledge, basic responsibilities, it takes you here and it reminds you that for phase 1, your new directors are required to take this module course right here by June 30th. If you have been to the website in the past year, it looks different now. We updated this in the past few days, thanks to our intern support and some staff support. The modules are now, when you click here, that look like this. You can click through, it's a little more user-friendly. You can pick it up and stop it at any point. At the very end of the modules, when you go through and learn about the fiduciary responsibilities and legal responsibilities, there is a final quiz. At the end of each module section, you'll see a take the quiz. This is a mini quiz. This is really just to test your own knowledge, pick up maybe if you didn't do this all in one setting, and really just check what you remember. It is the final quiz at the bottom that actually is the one that we are tracking and sending to DCR when folks complete this training module for your completion of phase 1 for new directors. So that was, again, a really big, quick overview, but I encourage you to check out those modules. They've been fantastic, not just for new directors, I think, onboarding, but they are something that are easily accessible for any new staff you have. Something that might be a great baseline for them to understand the foundation of who we are and what we do. So even our new employees starting later this month will be asked to go through that training module session and learn a little bit about our baseline.
Kathy, I do not have my laptop up with that, but I can send the admin Google Drive to the admin listserv today.
That's a great point. Thank you, Kathleen, for reminding me. Perfect.
Thank you.
So Shannon, appreciate it. We'll send out the link to that as well as a link to the plan of work. We can dig in a little bit further, but I encourage you to take a look at that and offer. We'll set up another committee meeting and allowance with Kathleen and Susie's time to really help guide that conversation. We have a lot of content training we wanted to talk about on this one too. So I appreciate it. I hope it was helpful. But we'll get another one on the books sooner than later so we can dive into really planning for the committee and training needs also. Kathleen, Susie, what have I missed?
You covered everything. Just, you know, if people have training ideas, make sure and send those in to us.
Yeah, I think you got it, Kendall. I know we're really running short on time, but
I know.
unless somebody else has anything, I think, like you said, we'll do maybe a cooler chat at some point to catch up again.
I think that's a great idea. Right. Hey, we'll have a even more informal one sooner than later, but I'm glad you found the information helpful, at least as we ran through some of the training pieces for admin ops folks. And Kathleen, Susie, and Shannon and I will connect and send out an announcement both to the listserv and all district to help you join in for the next piece. In the interim, make sure you access that Google Drive, those Mentee forms, and that plan of work and offer some insights for us. Thank you, guys.